I got hired to help keep their house tidy, not to cause any family drama. But one unexpected kiss changed everything, and although I lost the man I loved, it led me to discover the life I was truly meant for. Hey there, I'm Rose. I'm 30, and I'm a teacher. Becoming a teacher was always my dream, but I made plenty of mistakes along the way, mistakes that ended up hurting people around me. There was a time when I was caught up in what I thought were innocent pleasures, not realizing I was causing some real trouble for a family. Life used to be pretty straightforward for me, but it wasn't without its challenges. I grew up in a small rural barrio where daily life was all about planting crops, tending to livestock, and taking care of family. Despite the tough times, people often said I was cheerful and kind-hearted, always putting my family's needs first. I'm the second child in a family of 5 siblings and the only one to make it through high school. Teaching was my big dream, but I had to put it on pause when my father got sick and I needed to help out financially. So, when a relative mentioned a job opportunity as a housemaid in the city, I jumped at the chance. As soon as I walked into the De Vega home, I was struck by how different it was from my own world. Their huge house was tucked behind high fences, surrounded by a big garden filled with the kind of fancy furniture I'd only ever seen on TV. My boss, Mr. Michael, was a well-known lawyer, while his wife, Mrs. Caroline, was a businesswoman. They had a sweet 6-year-old daughter named Eliza. Mrs. Caroline went over the house rules with me. She was cool and strict, but totally fair. Eliza and I quickly hit it off, as she loved hearing my stories about life back home. Mr. Michael was seldom around, busy with court cases and office work. During my first month there, I barely saw Mr. and Mrs. De Vega together. He usually came home late and headed straight to his study. One morning, while I was tidying up the garden, Mr. Michael showed up unexpectedly. I had assumed he'd left for work, but there he was, in a plain white t-shirt and jogging pants. It suddenly dawned on me how attractive he was. I greeted him, "Good morning, sir." And just that simple exchange made my heart flutter. "Good morning," he replied, and when I offered to make him breakfast, I could feel his eyes on me the whole time I was setting the table. It wasn't something I was used to, being noticed like that. As I placed his plate in front of him, he gently stopped me, catching my hand. A warm jolt ran through me, and I blushed. Smiling, he said, "Let me serve myself. Just sit and eat with me." I hesitated, but he insisted, so I joined him. We chatted over breakfast, and any awkwardness melted away as we laughed and talked about my family and life back home. Eliza joined us, and it felt like we were a little family, Mr. Michael as the dad, Eliza the child, and me, feeling a warmth I couldn't quite name. As days passed, Mr. Michael and I grew more acquainted. Over dinner, he'd ask about my life in the province, and each story I told was met with his genuine, warm smile. Unexpected feelings began to take root in my heart. Then, one day, Mrs. Caroline went out of town for a seminar. Mr. Michael was out as well, and with Eliza at school, I decided to tidy up Mr. Michael's study. While I was busy organizing, he walked in. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you were here," I said, a bit caught off guard. Papers nearly slipped from my fingers, but he simply smiled. "No problem, Rose. Thank you for organizing," he said, settling into his chair. While I continued tidying up, he asked, "So, how long have you been working as a housemaid?" I admitted it was my first time, and that I needed to help my family back home since our earnings weren't enough. Our brief exchange turned into a warm conversation, drawing us even closer. On a rainy night, I sat in the kitchen, worried about my family. Mr. Michael appeared with 2 mugs of steaming coffee and joined me. We talked about dreams, mine of being a teacher, which seemed far away, and his occasional weariness with his work, but determination to provide for his family. Our late-night chats became a comforting routine, sharing hopes and stories that brought us closer with each meeting. As we chatted, I found myself captivated by his gaze. For a fleeting moment, every other sound, the rain, the ticking clock, faded into the background. I couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to be cherished by someone like him, someone who cared so deeply for his family, even if they were often apart. I saw his efforts to spend time with his wife, yet Mrs. Caroline was always off to another seminar. "Isn't your wife home yet, sir?" I asked, surprised at the late hour. He shook his head with a hint of sadness and took a sip of his coffee. We both watched the rain outside, neither of us willing to break the peaceful silence. I occasionally caught him glancing my way. My heart danced to its own rhythm. "Go and rest, Rose," he whispered gently. I was about to say no when he unexpectedly placed his hand over mine. My eyes widened in surprise. "Don't worry about your family," he assured me softly. "They're going to be just fine." Though his words registered, my mind was more focused on the warmth of his hand. Not wanting to misread the situation, I quickly pulled my hand back. He paused, realizing his mistake, and cleared his throat. "You really should get some sleep," he repeated. Feelings that lingered. As weeks went by, I found my feelings growing deeper. What I initially thought was simple admiration had evolved into something more meaningful. I tried maintaining distance, but every smile and act of kindness pulled me back in. Mr. Michael likely noticed my newfound evasiveness. I knew it wasn't right to entertain such feelings. He had a wife and a child. So I decided it was best to steer clear, hoping to avoid any complications. But temptation has a funny way of sneaking up on you. A sleepless child and a gentle touch. One evening, we crossed paths again. I was in the kitchen preparing some warm milk for little Eliza when Mr. Michael called my name. His voice sent a shiver down my spine. He asked if I could help put his daughter to bed, as she couldn't sleep without her mother's bedtime story. Mrs. Caroline had a late-night business engagement and wasn't home. I agreed. Holding the glass of milk, I was caught off guard when he reached over, brushing my hand as he took it from me. That small touch sent a wave of warmth through me. "I'll carry it," he said softly. Unable to speak, I followed him upstairs, trying to appear unaffected even as I felt his eyes on me. Though my heart raced like a drumbeat, I maintained a calm exterior. Mr. Michael reached Eliza's room first and opened the door for me. I bit my lip, slid inside, and saw Eliza looking a little restless on her bed. I moved to comfort her. Mr. Michael handed her the milk and picked up a storybook, passing it to me. I took it with a smile and began to read. To my surprise, he sat down on the bed with us. As he gently stroked Eliza's hair, his hand lightly brushed against my waist. I tried to concentrate on the story, though I couldn't help but wonder why he was still there. He simply smiled, watching us with interest. When I finished the story, Eliza looked up and said in her sweet voice, "I wish you were my mommy." I glanced at Mr. Michael, stunned. He was already looking at me, and our eyes locked. I didn't know what was on his mind, but there was a part of me that wished I could simply say, "I wish so too," just so I could freely admire your amazing dad. Within minutes, Eliza, sleepy from the late hour, drifted off. Mr. Michael invited me downstairs for coffee. I wanted to refuse, yet I didn't wish to offend my employer, and, in truth, I wasn't sleepy either, so I accepted. "I'll make the coffee, sir," I said politely. He only nodded and watched while I prepared 2 mugs. His silent gaze unnerved me, but I focused on the task. Carrying the steaming cups toward him, I felt my whole body tremble again when our eyes met. The cup slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. Panicked, I bent to pick up the pieces, but his warm hand closed over mine to stop me. We looked straight at each other. "I'll take care of it, Rose," he said softly, as though afraid I might hurt myself. The tone of his voice made me swallow hard. I didn't want to read too much into his gestures. Perhaps he was simply kind to his household staff. Perhaps this is just how he treats everyone, I told myself, despite how weak I felt in his presence. "I really should clean that up, sir." "I'm the one who dropped it," I insisted, forcing my voice steady even as my knees weakened. "Why are you avoiding me, Rose?" he asked, catching me completely off guard. I hadn't realized he'd noticed. I'd tried to act normal, merely keeping a respectful distance. I had forgotten he was a lawyer, skilled at reading people. I couldn't answer. He lifted his hand and cupped my cheek instead, gently stroking it. Every wall I'd built came crashing down. Then, before I could think, he claimed my lips in a kiss, and I found myself kissing him back. I knew it was wrong, yet I was dazed by the rush of feeling. "Let's keep this between us. No one has to know," he whispered, when our lips parted. "I know you feel what I feel." From then on, we found more and more chances to be alone, doing everything we could to hide our relationship. I don't fully understand why I agreed, only that I loved him, and every moment with him made me happy. We both knew it was wrong, but our feelings were stronger than our principles. I admit that whenever I saw him with Mrs. Caroline, jealousy gnawed at me, though I had no right. Even so, Mr. Michael never let me doubt his affection. A tender touch, a warm embrace, and all my resentments evaporated. Because his wife was often away, he and I spent many hours together, sometimes with Eliza, like a small secret family. Part of me wished Mrs. Caroline would simply stay gone forever. I was ready to love his child as my own. One day, Mr. Michael invited me to the park with Eliza. I agreed at once. Mrs. Caroline was too busy to come. Even at home, she buried herself in work, and perhaps that was why Mr. Michael's attention drifted toward me. We walked behind the little girl as she toddled along the path, and without warning he took my hand. I wanted to pull away in case someone recognized us and uncovered our secret, but when I looked at him, he walked on unconcerned, chatting about how Eliza had been as a baby. He told me Mrs. Caroline had fainted right after giving birth. Noticed that his wife's name was always on his lips whenever he told stories. I fell silent, painfully aware of my place. I had no right to feel jealous of Mrs. Caroline or angry at Mr. Michael. I had chosen this path, just as he had. I kept telling myself he mentioned her simply because he wanted me to understand his life, something I tried hard to believe. Yet the pattern never changed, and finally, unable to hold back, I asked him not to talk about his wife in front of me. He frowned, wrapped his arms around me from behind, and began kissing my neck. "Are you jealous?" he murmured. I squealed, half protest, half thrill. I squealed when his playful kisses tickled my neck, then blurted out the truth. I was jealous whenever he mentioned his wife. To my surprise, he laughed, loudly. "I do it on purpose," he admitted. "I want to make you jealous. You never tell me you love me, Rose. It's always me saying it first." He was right. Each time he held me or we spoke, he never failed to slip in a quiet "I love you," yet I had never said the words back. I untangled his arms from around my waist, faced him, cupped his cheeks, and kissed his soft lips. "I love you, Michael. Even though I know it's wrong," I whispered. His answering smile lit up his whole face. He kissed me again, deeper this time, until a voice and hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway. Mrs. Caroline was heading toward the kitchen. I shoved Michael away just as she appeared. The moment she saw us, her brow furrowed, eyes darting between her husband and me as if puzzled to find us together. "I just got home. Eliza said you were here," she told him. Michael nodded, strode straight to his wife, slipped an arm around her waist, and kissed her on the lips. She gasped in surprise. I felt 1,000 needles stab my heart at the sight. Cold distance, secret glances. From that night on, I avoided Michael. Mrs. Caroline had begun coming home early, no longer too busy, and the three of them often laughed together in Eliza's room while I brought in the child's milk. I sensed Michael's eyes following me, but I refused to look back. The smallest glance might shatter my resolve. One afternoon, while I was alone in the kitchen, a rough hand seized my wrist. Michael. Anger blazed in his eyes. "Are you mad at me?" he asked softly. I tried to yank my hand free, terrified we might be heard, but he wouldn't let go. He hurried to explain, fear flickering in his gaze. He'd kissed his wife, he said, only because he saw suspicion in her eyes. It was the quickest way to erase it. Listening, I realized he had a point. Mrs. Caroline had looked unconvinced that night, so I accepted his explanation, and peace returned between us. Whenever Mrs. Caroline was home, Michael and I survived on stolen looks. If her back was turned, he would brush a kiss across my lips, my cheek, sometimes my neck, or pull me briefly into a fierce embrace. I told myself that was enough. Better fleeting warmth than losing him entirely, for by now I loved him with a depth that frightened me. The night the storm finally broke, Michael. Mrs. Caroline's voice rang through the house one evening, but Michael and I were in the kitchen, kissing with hungry urgency. I shoved him away, heart hammering, yet he only tightened his grip on my waist to keep me close. Heavy footsteps approached. I pushed him harder and darted behind the pantry door just as Mrs. Caroline entered. Another night she failed to come home, and Michael seized the chance for a few precious hours alone with me. Eliza was asleep. Michael lay with his chin on my arm, holding me while I traced lazy circles on his back. His lips brushed my neck. I giggled, turned, and wrapped my arms around his shoulders. He glanced at my mouth and grinned, exactly what I expected, a kiss that was equal parts teasing and possessive. We had barely begun when a furious voice slashed the air. "You animals!" Mrs. Caroline stood in the doorway, crackling with rage like thunder. Her suspicions, it seemed, had been brewing for a long time. "I knew it," she hissed. "I've seen the way you two look at each other." Michael and I froze as though doused in ice water. The secret we had fought so hard to hide was at last laid bare under his wife's furious gaze. A family in ruins. Mrs. Caroline could feel the tension whenever the three of us were together, and she began asking Eliza pointed questions. Because Eliza was a child, honest and unfiltered, she repeated everything she had seen. The lingering looks, the quiet laughs, the moments her father and I spent alone. Each innocent confession deepened Caroline's suspicions. Determined to win her husband back, Caroline tried hard to reclaim his attention, to revive their fragile family. Yet she quickly recognized how strong the desire between Michael and me had become. "The way you look at each other is completely different," she told us later. "When he looks at you, Rose, it's nothing like the way he looks at me." Shame bound my tongue. I lowered my gaze, feeling the weight of being the reason their marriage was crumbling. Caroline lunged at me, fingers curled to grab my hair, but Michael threw himself between us and shoved me behind his back. He clamped his hand around my wrist, hiding me as though to shield something precious. Caroline laughed bitterly through her tears. "So that's it. You'll defend your mistress. You choose this housemaid over your own family." She turned her fury on me. "Aren't you ashamed, Rose? I was good to you, and you repay me by seducing my husband." Michael tried to explain, but Caroline already knew the truth. She ordered me to pack and leave. When Michael blocked her, the pain in Caroline's eyes was undeniable. She could not fathom her husband's betrayal. The house devolved into shouting. I stood silent, head bowed, listening to their accusations. Caroline insisted she had done everything to carve out family time, but for Michael it was never enough. From the day he met me, he said, I was the one who had time for him and for their child, almost as if I were his real wife. Their argument ended only when Eliza appeared at the top of the stairs, crying. Michael reached for her, but Caroline scooped the girl into her arms and issued an ultimatum. "Choose, our daughter and me, or her." Michael answered that he wanted to be with me and Eliza. Caroline flatly refused. If he left, the child would stay with her. I knew how much Michael loved his daughter. As their voices battled on, I made the decision that would set things right. Late that night, Michael and I spoke alone for the final time. "Forgive me," I told him gently. "I never meant to hurt you." I begged him to repair his family. It wasn't too late. "Maybe you only thought you loved me," I suggested. "Perhaps you were simply starved for attention. Attention your wife couldn't give, so you found it in me." Michael fell to his knees, pleading with me not to leave. He swore it wasn't mere attention. He loved me, truly loved me, and could even fight for custody of Eliza so the three of us could be together. But my mind was set. I would not deepen the wound I had already inflicted. This choice was for their family and for my own soul. Michael fell to his knees, pleading with me not to leave. He swore it wasn't mere attention. He loved me, truly loved me, and could even fight for custody of Eliza so the three of us could be together. But my mind was set. I would not deepen the wound I had already inflicted. This choice was for their family and for my own soul. At dawn, I walked away from the De Vega gate on unsteady legs. From a distance, I saw Michael watching me, his eyes hollow. Eliza wept in her mother's arms while Caroline stroked the child's hair. Back in my village, everything looked older, my siblings weighed down by new responsibilities. My mother, thinner and tired from endless worries. She embraced me and whispered, "Thank you for coming home." Her warmth only reminded me of the heavy secret I could share with no one. I plunged into farm work, planting, tending animals, helping with every humble task. No matter how busy I kept, Michael haunted my thoughts. His smile, the dizzying thrill of our brief love. I heard no news of him, but each night I prayed he was well, that he had mended his family, and, yes, that the love between husband and wife might bloom again, even if the price was my own broken heart. I resolved to rebuild my life. My old dream of teaching flickered back to life. It was not too late. I found work as a shop clerk in town, saving every coin for tuition. Despite the hardship, hope buoyed me. One day I would study again. With help from my family and friends, I enrolled in a vocational course, the first step toward becoming a teacher. My story, I realize now, is one of mistakes, forbidden love, and healing. I cannot delete the past, but I can shape what comes next, choosing, with each sunrise, to grow, to forgive, and to begin new.